Friday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope your weekend is off to a good start. So everybody's talking quarterbacks. We'll talk a little quarterbacks, both veterans as well as some of the rookies. Give you some comps for some of the rookies that are interesting. But I mentioned everybody is talking about the Browns in the quarterback position. Denzel Ward was asked by TMZ Sports how far the Browns are away from being contenders.
Do you think that the team needs a good quarterback, or should they be rebuilding the entire, roster?
Yeah. I think we need a great quarterback for real. I mean, I think the NFL, that's what it start with. Start with that quarterback position, and once you get that solidified, then the rest of the team go follow and go carry along. So I don't think we're too far off. We need to solidify that position though.
Right. What about Geno Smith? There have been talks about him coming over. Do you think he could be the one?
He's solid. He's a solid quarterback. Until we get him in the building, get people in the building, I'm still rolling with my people we got there. But no, he's a good quarterback though, and he come to the team. I would like that.
Right now, Garrett Miles, right? He goes, listen, the team ain't that bad.
Yeah.
We're like right there,
Yeah.
almost there. Do you agree with that statement, or do you feel like there's like a lot more?
No, for sure. Like I said, I think we got a good team for real. But we got to solidify that quarterback position. You got a quarterback position, you see it's going to take you far in this league.
Right. What about Watson? A lot of injuries.
Yeah.
I mean, have you, I'm sure that you may keep in contact with him maybe. How's he doing? What, career's kind of in jeopardy, or do you feel like he's going to make a full?
I think he'll make a recovery. I think, the biggest thing is just probably mental right now. Like I said, there's a lot of hate going around right now, but you just can't look too deep into it. And you just got to overcome it, though. I think he'll overcome it and be better from it. He's going to be good.
Let's welcome in Garrett Bush from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show as well as the Barbershop. G. Bush, you look at it, and unless you get a quarterback, you're going to struggle in the NFL.
Man, and I don't know why people think, when this came out, people was up and on. Can you imagine Denzel Ward say something about quarterback? Let me give y'all a news flash. We've been saying it for a long time, man. The quarterback position is what it is. And I think some people are thrown off a little bit because we'll talk about it later on the show, where people are kind of gun shy on quarterbacks. And I get it. It's not the best market to get a quarterback. And I'll give him credit for it. Jeff Lloyd, my former partner over on the Locked On Browns, now is with the Orange and Brown Report. He said it last night. I listened to his blog, and he said, listen, I know we're uncomfortable because this is not a great year to hang your hat on one specific candidate, or this is not a great year to say that free agent guy right there or bridge quarterback is perfect fit for what we got, given our cap situation, given where we are. But the one thing that always rings true, boys and girls, is that the quarterback position, whether you like them all or whether you're in love with them or you're sold on them completely 100%, that doesn't matter. The Cleveland Browns are going to have 3 new guys in that room. Deshaun Watson is off of he's not in the plans. When you tear your Achilles heel again, not to mention that he was already coming off games and where he didn't play that well, and there's multiple seasons, and now you've had 2 ACLs, a shoulder injury that most quarterbacks don't have. Then you tore your Achilles heel. Then you tore your Achilles heel again. That's writing on the wall. And listen, I tore my ACL twice. And after I tore my ACL twice, it was a tough, cold reality was that, if I wanted to play professionally, that was gone. You're already at a max school. You're already with the deck stacked against you. You started off good. You started when you were a freshman. But if you tear an ACL and you have an ACL injury the last game of the season against North Carolina State, you then come back the very next season and you rehab, you do everything you need to do, come back in 8 months, and then you tear it again right before you play Pitt. Like that's a whole life move. Like you got to start thinking about what you're doing after football at that point, because you are behind the 8 ball in terms of playing, processing, and having your body ready to always build, always be at peak position into playing. So Denzel Ward is just saying what everybody else is thinking, and I wouldn't be surprised. And this is sad. I wouldn't be surprised if Deshaun Watson mentally is thinking that way. I also believe that the Cleveland Browns, in general, when you go back and you have to talk and have these conversations with the Denzel Wards and the Myles Garrett and the Joe Bitonio about what the plan is moving forward, I think that they, behind closed doors, have already told those guys, hey, Our plan is we got to get a quarterback in the draft. We'll get a bridge guy to kind of go in here as well to keep him under tutelage. Kevin Stefanski is going to call the plays. We got Tommy Reese, who's done some good things in Notre Dame and Alabama with quarterbacks that are young in college. We're going to elevate him, let those two young guys grow, eventually turn over some play calling for the next year or two, or when you get acclimated into what Kevin wants to run, then turn over the play callings, maybe not this year, but next year. Then it starts to see this optimism where, you know, you can say Jaden Daniels and you can say Bo Nix. You say, well, those guys went to the playoffs, and that gives you some sort of hope. So I think they've already had this discussion behind closed doors with them and Deshaun Watson in general about, hey, it's unfortunate. We're going to move on. We're going to do some things to kind of, you know, get the cap situation and restructure to make sure we can fund the team. And we don't wish you the best of luck. We're going to give you all the opportunity to rehab it and get you ready for your next stint. But moving forward, this is the way we're going.
All right. This is from Dan Lobby, cleveland.com. 5 burning questions the Browns must answer on offense this offseason. Number 1, is Jerry Jeudy the number 1 wide receiver? Number 2, what do you have in Cedric Tillman? Number 3, is there left tackle in the building? Number 4, was this year a blip on the radar for David Njoku? And number 5, what do they want their running back room to feature? Those are all, G-Bush, those are all legitimate. And Jerry Jeudy, the question with Jerry Jeudy is, you know, he had the 5th most receiving yards in franchise history this year for the Browns. Most of them were with Jameis Winston. He's not going to be back.
Those are all good questions. Very, very good questions, because all of those players have question marks. You start with Jerry Jeudy. Great season from Jerry Jeudy. However, you have to notice that the production dipped when Jameis Winston went out of the game. Looked like he dropped a lot of footballs when it was DTR. He said he came out after the game and said, I didn't do the good enough job catching the football when a young guy got it to me. Looked horrible with Deshaun Watson. So you're 1 for 3. You're 1 for 3 in terms of, you know, your production that you have. And then you go back and look at his production with some of the other quarterbacks in Denver that weren't there. So you start to say to yourself, okay, is he a true number 1? I think he's the most, I guess, the most settled question mark, because we've seen it this year on tape, and we've seen him actually put a lot of good work on tape. And what you would hope to think is, all right, well, if he's a 1A or a B, the Browns still need to come out with a playmaker. They still need to add another wide receiver. We've been saying it forever, because it leads us to the second guy, Cedric Tillman. We saw a couple of good games from Cedric Tillman. We also saw drops in the early part of the season, and then we see durability concerns. I mean, he had a concussion, and that seemed to happen in the middle of the year, and continuously as we looked, not on the field, not on the football field. So, I mean, he's getting to the point where he's been around a little bit of time. He's been in the system, and we're going to have to move and fill this room on the run. If we can get something for Cedric Tillman, awesome. Like, if we can get that he turns out to be a number 2 or 3 receiver. But I don't think you could count on him just showing up and being like, oh, I'm a number 2 or a number 1 receiver next year. So the receiver room needs upgrades, just like the quarterback room. You get to DeJuan Jones. Right now, if I was them, and I'm not saying it's just to DeJuan Jones, I'd say this to everything. I think a new offensive line coach, Andy Dickerson, and not to really, you know, kick a man when he's down, I thought he did a terrible job last year. Comes out that Mike Vrabel is actually running them rooms. He's the one that's way more pivotal. I think the Cleveland Browns take a huge step back because of Bill Callahan. There wasn't the aggressiveness. I think linemen need to be in better shape. I'll say it, not just DeJuan. I'm talking about Wyatt Teller. I'm talking about Joe Bitonio. I'm talking about Ethic Pochich. I think they need to get back to a point where they're being challenged, and those guys need to come out lean and mean and be ready to go the long haul. I thought camp was too weak. I thought those guys worked their way into shape. This offensive line play got better, but in the beginning of the season, I think they didn't know what they're doing. I didn't understand what schemes they were running, and I think they were out of shape. So DeJuan Jones is the biggest concern, because he is 400 pounds, because he is a big guy. He's going to have to come back, and I would have him on a weight program right now. Hey, I need you by this time in the facility, or we're going to have to start talking about fines. David Njoku was another one. I thought he played heavier. I thought he lost a step in terms of his quickness. I think he in and out of his breaks wasn't the same. I think David Njoku needs to come back in shape with a renewed sense of vigor to try to get him back to being one of those guys talked about as being a top 5 tight end. And I think you also in this draft had to go get another running back. I like Jerome Ford. He's more of an outside runner. I don't like the fact that he's not a guy that can get the tough 3 yards. And we know what was up with Nick Chubb. He was not the same back. We told you he wasn't going to be the same back. He now has the foot injury. I don't think you can lean on Nick Chubb to be the bell cow back. They need to get improvements at the running back position as well. That's a little long-winded. But long story short, Dan Labby definitely talks about those 5 things. And those are huge questions going in the draft. And Browns have to get all of them fixed as much as possible with younger talent and cheaper talent in this year's draft.
Yeah, when I'm looking at the offense, I think Jerry Jeudy has the potential to be a playmaker with the ball in his hand. You got to get me 2 more. David Njoku has the potential. You need 2. You need a running back and you need another receiver that defenses go, man, when he gets the ball, he's a problem. They other than Jerry Jeudy, they really, and maybe Njoku if he's healthy, those are the only 2 guys that a defense has to even concern themselves with relative to being a playmaker.
They don't scare you at all. The speed, the size, the quickness, the deep threat. The Cleveland Browns, I said it, they are playing in the 1980s. And when you are going to go back to Kevin Stefanski, when you're running play action, you got to make play action count. When I'm faking and running the ball and setting it up, I can't have receivers dropping the ball. I can't have offensive linemen holding. I can't have legal guys downfield. And when you get the ball, you might need to take it to the house. So you need the weapons, you need the discipline, and I think the Browns need to grossly just their athletic profile in general, top down, their scouting evaluation should be on quick, twitchy, fast, explosive athletes at every position on the board, and that's the way the Cleveland Browns have to go about retooling this team.
G. Bush and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll also play Comp This Quarterback with some of the draft prospects at QB. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back.
Are you ready? The Ohio Lottery is about to unleash 50 new millionaires on Ohio. Want a chance to become one? Play VIP Millions. With 50 $1 million winning tickets, it's your best chance to win $1 million ever.
We continue talking Browns with Garrett Bush from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show and the Barbershop. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
How about if the Browns pick up Howard out of Ohio State in the 4th round? I think he'd be a good fit. His height, his arm strength, his capability of reacting with players. I think he'd be a good fit.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. G. Bush, I question whether he has the arm strength in the NFL. The other thing that I'll say about Will Howard, and I think 4th round might be a little early. I think he'll get a chance. He'll be a day 3 pick, I think. Remember, he's playing with Jeremiah Smith, who's going to be, whenever he comes out, he's going to be the number 1 overall pick. Emeka Egbuka is a number 1 pick. Travion Henderson is a playmaker. He should look good. And I'm not taking anything away from Will Howard. He's got a lot of weapons.
Yeah, they got a lot of draftable linemen up and down the line that are going to get drafted. Junkins will probably be a 2nd-round pick. Travion Henderson is raising his draft stock as well. Egbuka is a 1st-round pick. Jeremiah Smith is an absolute stud. And Ohio State's defense is, they're lights out. So, he can afford to make some mistakes. He can afford to punt the football. He can afford not to be able to look downfield. When I looked at Will Howard, one of his biggest advantages coming from Kansas State, I thought he was going to run the ball a lot more. I said he was the northern version of Tim Tebow. Now he throws the ball way better than Tim Tebow, but I thought Chip Kelly would use him a lot more on design runs. But when you got Junkins and you got Travion Henderson, you don't need to run the ball. Just run the ball with those 2 guys. So I like his size. I think he has good leadership, intangibles. I think he's a fiery competitor. As we talked about, he can get a tough 3 or 4 yards when he needs to. But there are some holes in his game. He throws the ball in coverage. I think he has a tough time processing and anticipating throws. He does have a good enough arm. I think his arm is decent enough, but it's not like a howitzer or anything. It's not a Josh Allen type arm. I don't think it's something where he's going to be seen as a guy that has a rifle for an arm that you can kind of work on his accuracy and footsteps. Listen, I think, will he make an NFL roster? I think he will be on an NFL roster this year. I think he'll get drafted more around the 5th, 6th round, depending on what he does and his measurables and how fast he runs. But I think he's a 5th or 6th round pick. For me, if I was going to go to day 2, I like Curtis Rourke better. I like Jackson Dart better. I like Jalen Milroe better. I like those guys because they have elite parts of their game. They do have some slow parts and lulls or whatever. And some people may even say they like Dylan Gabriel. He's just a little shorter and smaller, but very accurate. I think he's along the lines of a 4th or 5th round pick that when you look at those guys. So I think he'll make a roster. I'm not so necessarily sure that the Cleveland Browns will take him in the 5th round. I think that they have their sights set on a higher ceiling quarterback than Will Howard, but he will be on the roster, NFL roster, I believe.
All right, so you ready to play comp the quarterback for the quarterbacks in this class? All right, we're going to start.
To it.
Let's start with Cam Ward. So Ward's scouting report, these are all from the 33rd team, including the comps. And I will tell you, the comps will change after the combine, but some of them are really interesting. So Cam Ward, explosive passer, has the ceiling to be an impact starter at the pro level. Greatest gift is also his greatest curse. Ward at times erratic and unpredictable in the execution of his offense. All right, pro comp, who are you guessing? How about Jameis Winston? If you like Jameis Winston, you're going to love Cam Ward.
Listen, you know what was crazy about this comparison? I would have said more along the lines of a younger Deshaun Watson, which I think a lot of people were scared off of a little bit. But a young Deshaun Watson, not the one we got, the old Deshaun Watson, you take a look at him throwing the ball downfield, improvising, getting out of the pocket. Playing off schedule. He was one of the best players in the league, him and Patrick Mahomes, at doing that. I think Cam Ward has a better ability to throw the football. Cam Ward can get footballs into places where you're like arm angles. Mm-hmm. He has the mobility, and when you watch him, he has the athletic throwing ability where it's the arm angle is 3/4. He's coming over the top. He has ways of seeing pockets and doing different things. He can reuse his legs. He extend plays very well, and he is the charismatic leader that you take a look at with Jameis Winston. You take a look at where he came from. He came from a lower division, I think Division I or Division II school. Goes to Washington State. He does well there. Goes to Miami, better competition, more speed. Goes there and dominates. So he's a guy who has a trajectory where sometimes people are late bloomers. Sometimes they late bloomers. He seems to be leveling up every time he goes to the next level. His game jumps up another level. And I think if he consistently can do those type of things, I do believe if you're taking a look at him, he has, to me, the most, the elite upside. I think he's the most upside of any of these quarterbacks in the draft in terms of his throwing ability.
Yeah, the one there are some throws that he makes where it's like, man, what are you doing? So I kind of chuckled when I saw Jameis Winston. And again, these comps will evolve once they go through the combine and those kind of things. All right, Shedeur Sanders, scouting report, smooth operator, has a sharp mind for the game. Baseline of talent is a starter relative to his physical traits with the NFL. A capable progression passer. So a guy that works well from the pocket. All right, who do you think the comp is on this one?
I would say he is now. Are these comps like a starter now? They're starters.
They're guys that are still in the league. Some have been starters. They're all over the board, to be honest with you.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with one like this. I think he's like Geno Smith.
They go with Andy Dalton, the guy that's a longtime starter for the Cincinnati Bengals. Had a pretty good career. You know, they were in the playoffs.
Yeah, nice one with the Bengals.
And The one thing is Dalton had a pretty, they called him the redheaded rifle. So I don't know about the arm comparison there, but Sanders is an intriguing one. You and I have talked before. The scary thing with him is if the Browns are interested in him, does Deion become a problem based on history and development? Maybe Deion's gotten beyond that. We'll see. The other thing is Deion's been his coach since he's 8 years old. Deion's been the only coach he's had.
With Prime, sometimes Prime, trust me, he's really the empty nest syndrome. Like, this guy's really extended his window on that. I mean, they've been with him like 30 years, bro. Like he's raised his kids down there hanging out. They go on vacation. Come on, bro, let him go. I think when you look at Shedeur, there's two things that I think that he's the most ready at. He's unflappable. I don't think there's nothing you could tell him. I think when Deion Sanders, Coach Prime says, I have his name in there as grown. I don't call him Shedeur. He's just a grown adult. Like, he's been the oldest kid. Well, not the oldest kid, but the older out of his younger kids that play. And guess what, man? Actually, Shiloh's older than him. That just goes to show you he's probably one of the youngest, but he seems the oldest. I had to do the math in my head before somebody get in the comment section and be like, actually, Shiloh's actually 8 months older. Okay, I get it. But when you talk about his game, he's not going to have a New York media, Cleveland media. Listen, it don't get no bigger than Coach Prime. I mean, he went from an HBCU and put that on the map, and then went to a Division I school in Colorado, who, by all accounts, let's just keep it real. When they went to Colorado, they had Coach Prime, Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn, and Shedeur Sanders. That was it. With those three people and one guy who don't play in Coach Prime, they turned that Colorado program from a 1-something over to a 9-win team that was talked about being in the playoffs. So they don't got much up front. They never had much up front. The guy can throw the football. I think he understands. He's really smart. It's not going to be too big for him. However, the thing that sticks in my mind is the internal clock. Yep. When to get rid of the football, taking sacks, throw the ball away, live to fight another day. We've seen that here as well. So we're a little gun shy about people who play that way with Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, but I do think there's a floor to his game that is a very solid starter that can make plays.
All right, before I let you go, we'll do one more. We'll do Jackson Dart, Ole Miss quarterback. I know you like him. Has been a productive quarterback for several seasons, transferred to Mississippi from USC. Necessary athleticism to get out of the pocket, extend plays, and has the arm strength to access most areas of the field. You're not going to like this comp. This one was done in October, and it might be a little scary for Jackson Dart fans. They say Jarrett Stidham, the guy who hadn't been able to crack an NFL starting lineup, who played at Auburn. I'm not sure I see that one, because I think Dart has a little bit more of the physical abilities.
Yeah, listen, Dart's, I watched him against Duke, right? And I was talking to Dustin Fox on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show today, and he talked about, he does college football games, and bowl games, for ESPN. And I was like, I was a little surprised, because me and my dad was watching. He called me up and said, hey, man, this Jackson Dart dude is killing. And I'm like, all right, let me check it out a little bit more. I've heard of him. I've watched him a few times. And when I saw the game, I said, oh, I like him, because he gives me athleticism that is understated. He gives me the ability to play in these offenses where it's you can see what he looks like with a great offensive mind when it comes to the different playbooks and the styles that he's running. He can make all the throws. He's played in the SEC. And then I had to go back to USC. I said, well, Lane Kiffin is a great offensive mind. Let me go back to where he was before. And he has good tape at USC and for the Trojans. So for me, he is my guy that I'm looking to go to. He's my go-to guy. If you talking, let's trade down, and we got time to talk about it. All this is up for debate. But today, I don't know if I'm the biggest trade down guy in the world, if you got a quarterback that you like. But if you say, I don't like the first two, and you want to trade down, he's a guy I think is my target in round 2. round 3. The problem with quarterbacks, and remember this, boys and girls, it's going. You're going to find out. We haven't talked about quarterback in a long time for the draft. Remember, a lot of these guys that you want second and third round, whatever the economics look like, and whatever these guys start to do, all it takes is one coach to say, I'm in love with that guy, and it don't matter. They'll overreach for a quarterback. So if you're thinking that you're going to be safe with getting the guy in round 3, I never feel safe in round 3 talking about so-and-so still on the board. I never feel safe, especially if it's a guy that I want that's sitting right there, that is in the second round. Always remember, they will reach for a quarterback. So to me, if the Cleveland Browns are interested in a guy like Jackson Dart, I think that he's more of a, just by default, he's going to creep into that second round range, and which means that there's a chance that you may overdraft him, or you may get a steal. So I like him the most right now in my trade back scenarios.
G. Bush, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Appreciate it.
G. Bush, make sure you check him out. Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, Monday through Friday, 11 to 1. You can also catch him on the Barbershop. We're going to step aside. We continue talking Browns. We head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason with Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's welcome in Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report, also hosts the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. So, Brad, you wrote an article for the Orange and Brown Report, critical questions the Browns must answer before the process of improving the offense can even start. So take us through that and kind of the thought behind it.
I think that one of the failures last year was the inability to put match personnel to their scheme. So if you're going to do things in the right order, and they've made the coaching hires now, so with Tommy Rees and Mike Bloomgren, and then they need to determine who the quarterback's going to be, because although they have a direction in the scheme and it feels like we're going back to kind of full Stefanski, right, on the offense, that much of what they will run and much of what they will zero in on offensively depends on what quarterback they choose, right? And then, or the quarterbacks, period, plural, that they choose, which probably will be multiple, I would think, if they're going the free agent route. And then, if they go the draft route, that's a whole nother, area that you have to try to simplify the offense more if you're going to plan on playing the young man and things like that. So the direction of the offense very much depends on who you pick at quarterback to be your guy. And then secondly, match the personnel to that scheme or that style of play that you're leaning into, which last year in the run game mainly was a big failure.
Yeah, the offensive line wasn't able to, or the strengths of what they wanted the offensive line to do wasn't the strengths of the offensive linemen, I guess.
No.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep, and it showed without question. So curious as to your thoughts on this one. Mel Kiper, top 10 quarterbacks in the upcoming draft. He's got Shedeur Sanders ranked 1, then Cam Ward, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, Ewers, Howard, McCord, Rourke, Shaw, and Dylan Gabriel. And again, I'm not sure. I think either of those top 2 guys are they're not can't miss guys, and I see elite arm talent with Cam Ward, and I see some earlier in the show, the comp that the 33rd team had on him was Jameis Winston. And I see some Jameis Winston throws from Cam Ward, and
Yep.
we knew what that felt like. The one that intrigues me, and I don't, Jalen Milroe, and I'm not saying Tommy Rees means they're going to draft Jalen Milroe, but I'm saying Tommy Rees has knowledge of Jalen Milroe that no other team does. He was his offensive coordinator for an entire season where he played pretty well at Alabama.
Yeah, definitely a connection there. And it could sway it either way, Dave. You know what I mean? We don't really know. It could sway them to have a lot of interest in him, or it could sway them away from him. You know what I mean? But at least they have the inside information on a player like that. I tend to think that a lot of teams are going to like him once they start interviewing him. He is a very, very hardworking, solid, good head on your shoulders, good leader type of guy that teams are going to gravitate to because of his leadership and his personality and just kind of the kid that he is, by all accounts. So I think teams will lean towards him once they get a chance to sit down with him. So who falls in love with him? Does somebody come up and give him in the back of the first round? Those are all really intriguing prospects, and I think the Browns may have interest in him. You know what I mean? Can they, make their offense work with him? That's a big thing. And I don't think he would be ready to play right away. So once again, it's kind of he's a little raw, right? The tape shows that he's a little raw. He probably needed another year in school, but you understand why he would come out in this class as it's a little bit weaker for his own reasons, So the other guys, I'm with you at the top of the draft. I can't at this point justify taking either guy really at 2. Yep. So I don't know what they do there. You mean, all this crazy stuff with Dallas. Maybe you get a haul. Maybe you can trade back. But you want to come away with a premier player. I don't want them to trade back too far.
Yep.
Because this draft doesn't have more than like 8 elite prospects. You know what I mean? Game-changing guys. So they're going to have to play this just right to come away with an elite playmaker and probably some draft assets as well.
Yeah, and again, when you're drafting as high up as the Browns are, you need to think in terms of Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward. Those are 2 of your cornerstones. One was number 1 overall, one was 4 overall. You got to get that type of player out of this first round. I agree with you wholeheartedly. This is interesting, and I'm not sure how I feel about this, I'll be honest. I keep going back and forth. So longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi with who he would go with in the offseason relative to a veteran quarterback for the Browns.
My guy to pursue as the veteran bridge quarterback is none other than Jimmy Garoppolo.
Wow. Tony is back on the Jimmy G train.
He spent the year with Sean McVay, the quarterback whisperer of our time. He started, I think, their last regular season game, and his looks is as good as ever. To me, he's a proven winner. His only problem is staying healthy.
Correct. So you better
that's
have
a big problem.
You better have someone better than DTR.
You're not
going to
get a Hall of Famer for this job. Let's all agree on that. So I'm going with Jimmy G to take the first snap.
Brett, they really haven't. This Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry haven't shown an interest in Jimmy G when he's been available. He does win. I can't argue that, and he does get hurt a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say injuries are not his only problem. He has some other issues, too, as a quarterback. But I agree with you. They've had opportunities to go after him in the past and have not showed a ton of interest. To be honest, he's not really on my radar as far as the guys there's a ton of free agent quarterbacks out there. And they're all kind of right in that same journeyman, some younger guys that are retreads, that you're gonna give another try to a new atmosphere, new coach, and hope that it works out, because that seems to be happening in the NFL a little bit more recently, as guys learn and develop. But Jimmy is not a guy that I would go to personally.
Yeah, no, I go back and forth. I kind of, and you're gonna laugh at this. I kind of like Daniel Jones. I think Daniel Jones Daniel Jones with Kevin Stefanski intrigues me. I don't know that I'm not saying I'd run right out to do it, but I'd like to see that. I think he would. I think he's the type of quarterback that Kevin Stefanski could get the most out of.
Agreed. I think he's certainly an option, because he's shown the ability to do the things that you would ask him to do in this offense. And I think that Kevin could simplify the offense for him enough to make him somewhat successful. He's at least one of the guys that I would throw at the wall, right? Do your due diligence on, see if he can potentially be an option for you. Like I said, I think that the smartest move is to bring in a couple of these guys and let them battle for what would be your, of the same style, what would be your starting position.
Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report, All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. And now I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. Full Court Action is a half hour devoted exclusively to men's and women's basketball from across the Mid-American Conference. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave Bacon. Join me at 6:30 Tuesday nights, and we'll meet the coaches and players from the Mid-American Conference who are making an impact in basketball. Full Court Action will spotlight the top plays and performances from all across the Mid-American Conference, with some historical action as well. Catch Full Court Action Tuesday nights at 6:30 on Rock Entertainment Sports Network. We continue talking Browns with Brad Ward from the Orange and Brown Report, as well as the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, it's Bob Chillicothe. I'm about wore out on thinking about all these quarterbacks, and we really ain't going to know anything until after the Senior Bowl and the Combine to get some more intel on these guys. But let's talk about our offensive line. I figure Wills is probably out. We could probably draft somebody play as good as him for a lot less money. Jones, we don't know what's a knee injury. We can't really depend on him to be able to come back. Just what are we going to do on our offensive line? I think it's going back to being more run game and the option and stuff. We're going to have some new guys down there. What's your thoughts? Anyways, go Browns. Woof, woof.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Brad, they got to get a tackle. I don't think you can count on DeJuan Jones. If he comes back and plays like it, great. We got three that can potentially play. I'd like Conklin back because I think he was probably the best offensive lineman. I really liked Zach Zinter coming out, and I know he didn't play well, but he was coming off a broken leg, and I don't think they ever expected him to play as much as he did. And I think physical strength on the offensive line matters, and I think coming back from a leg injury affected him more than some people want to give him, the benefit of the doubt of.
Yeah, definitely. The year after the year of an injury typically is when you get a guy's best performance, or I think you'll see a different Zach Zinter. You look at it feels like Bitonio's coming back at least for one more year, Dave. Teller and Conklin, as far as your starting offensive line, I think you need a new center flat out. And that's my personal opinion. They need a better center and somebody that is just better at the point of attack. Pocic was, although they are going back towards, Stefanski's offense, which may include some more wide zone, I expect them to be multiple in the run game, and he's just unable to get any push up front. And I think they need to move on there. And as you said, you can't depend on DeJuan coming back to play left tackle, or any tackle position. So you need to go out and find a left tackle, whether it be free agency or in the draft. This draft isn't great for tackles. A lot of the tackles are projected as guards, and it's kind of a beauty in the eye of the beholder there. So I expect Barry to be aggressive in free agency there as far as the tackle position goes. And then when DeJuan comes back, you kind of he gets in where he fits in on this offensive line. But if he's going to play there, Dave, he's got to be better as a run blocker. He's been fine in pass protection, but he's been just awful in run blocking. And if you are going to the main thing the Browns have to do this offseason, and I've said this and I'll keep saying it, is you have to make playing the quarterback position easier. And the way that you can do that is by having a run game. The run game has completely disappeared. So Bloomgren has a lot on his plate. Stefanski, they have to marry that all together, but they have to be effective. They have to add weapons in the running back room. And they have to be better on the offensive line. No matter who you're bringing in, it's not going to be a Hall of Famer, like Grossi said earlier. So you got to make the position easier by having a run game.
Yeah. So along those lines, this from Dog by Nature, 3 free agents who would completely change the Browns. Number 1, they go Najee Harris, running back from the Steelers, crossed the 1,000-yard mark all 4 of his years in Pittsburgh, 4,312 yards, 1,098 with 28 touchdowns, 208 first down conversions, 3.9 average. Number 2, they go the tackle, Ronnie Stanley from the Ravens. PFF grades in 2024, 75.2 run blocking, 79.8 for pass protection, allowed only 2 sacks, played over 1,000 snaps, durable, proven blocker, and could anchor left tackle position. Number 3, they go with safety, Javon Holland, safety from the Dolphins. Browns need to get rid of Juan Thornhill and bring in a guy who will work out and lay it out on the field every game. Graded PFF 86.8. I'm not as crazy about safety. Harris, he's not a breakaway guy, but he's a move the chains guy.
He is. I think, listen, what they do with Nick Chubb, I think they'll bring him back. You can't depend on him for anything, but you'll bring him back to, at the very least, hopefully be your short yardage guy. At least I hope they do, Dave. But the 2 other guys that you put in that room, for me, need to be explosive and guys that can break one at any time and can catch the ball out of the backfield. And for Harris, it's too close to kind of, he's just not. I know he's a bruiser. I would be looking for somebody that can do more of both out of the backfield. I'm just not a big fan of Najee. I think he requires so much good blocking to get him to where he needs to go. So I need somebody that can create on their own. So I would be looking. This draft is full of running backs with a ton of talent. So I'd be taking a couple probably.
All right, before I let you go, this from Dan Lobby, cleveland.com. 4 burning questions Browns defense must answer in 2025. Number 1, where are the playmakers? Number 2, what is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah's future? How do they remake the safety room? And how do they address their pass rush? I think their pass rush, there's some guys that are intriguing. Assuming Myles Garrett is coming back on an extension, Isaiah McGuire was intriguing. Alex Smith was intriguing before he was there. Michael Hall, if he can come back and isn't too bothered by the leg. There are parts there. But the playmakers, the cornerbacks, other than Denzel Ward, were all question marks. The safeties weren't good. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is, arguably one of your best players. Maybe other than Myles Garrett, he or Denzel Ward is your best player. So, you need him on the field.
Yeah, and I don't know what the determination on that is. We still don't know, right? Like, he's going around looking for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th opinions on this. That's scary to hear. You would love to feel good about him coming back next year, but we really just don't know what the outcome is going to be, right, with JOK. So once again, when you don't know in the NFL, you've got to kind of treat the position like that's not, you can't bank on it, right? You can't just hope and wish that a guy's going to be back. So, they need to add playmakers. If you're talking wide receiver and running back room, I feel okay about the wide receiver room. And I think they need to add one guy there to feel really solid and some depth. You'll get some guys getting back healthy as well. But with said Tillman and Jerry Jeudy, I think you can add a player in the draft or in via trade, as Barry has done. I would keep an eye on that. That would round out that room nicely. I'm not so much worried about that with Judy's kind of breakout performance and the way Tillman looked before his concussion. So, my main concern, we just talked about, is the running back room. You've got to add some talent there. You look at like the Lions and the Falcons and what they've done with adding elite players there. That just changes the way your offense operates to have that kind of a weapon in the backfield. They need to try their very best to add weapons there. And in the secondary, I expect them to add a corner and see how this thing plays out. It'd be interesting how this plays out with Newsome and his fifth-year option. How they're going to handle that will be very interesting to watch. Like you said, the safety, I think you can add, if you take Hickman and Delpit and add a guy, I think you're okay. So, and some depth, I think you're okay. So, Grant Delpit is the main guy back there, right? He's a stud. You got to build around him. But I don't think they're as far off as many believe they are.
No, I would agree with that. I've been saying that for a little bit. When you get historically bad quarterback play, everything, and even the defense, it's on the field more, so it doesn't look as good as it should either. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Brad Ward, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Brad.
You're the very best, Dave. Thank you for having me.
Brad Ward, make sure you read him, Orange and Brown Report. He also hosts the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. We're going to step aside, take one more timeout. Other side of the break, Stephen Means, Buckeyes beat reporter, will talk Ohio State and Notre Dame Monday night for the national championship. That's straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We turn our attention to the Ohio State Buckeyes getting ready to face Notre Dame in the national championship game Monday night. Buckeyes quarterback Will Howard transferred into Ohio State this season. Earlier this week, talked about the opportunity and this season with this game.
It's surreal, I think, is what you're trying to say. I do have to kind of pinch myself at times and be like, man, I'm in the national championship, but at the same time, it is where we expected to be, man. And, we got ready for this season saying that, if we were going to come out of it saying it was a success, we were going to have to play 16, 17 games. And here we are, man. And so I'm just proud of our guys that we got to this point. But like I said last week, man, the job's not finished, and it's not finished until we win.
Let's welcome in Stephen Means, Buckeyes beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Stephen, you've been around the Buckeyes all season, all week, getting ready for the national championship game. What have they been like getting ready for Notre Dame in the title game Monday?
Yeah, pretty locked in, right? It just kind of feels like they're right there at the finish line, and they just need to cross on over that thing and finish this thing out. That's how Ryan Day keeps talking. He's been talking all year about this idea of leaving no doubt, and obviously it's been a roller coaster of a year to get to this point, but they're a win away from finally achieving that goal of winning a national title. And Ryan Day's talking about no distractions. It's Jim Knowles and Chip Kelly as his offensive coordinators. They were very loose and kind of chill. I wouldn't say Ryan Day is uptight. He just understands that the mission is not necessarily finished yet, and he wants to make sure that that's the tone and that's the message that he's portraying from inside of that program is that, yeah, we're excited to be here, but we also want to win this thing. We're not just excited to be here. This is getting here is not the accomplishment. Holding up the trophy on Monday night is the accomplishment.
Yeah, and you heard that from the players right after the game in their post game comments after Texas. You heard that same message.
Very much a job's not finished type of vibe. And I think they even on social media have come out and stuff with that. It's almost, you remember when Kobe Bryant, I think he had gotten asked during the NBA Finals, hey, how come you're not smiling? You won 2 games. It's like, because the job's not finished. I didn't realize that winning an NBA championship was winning 2 games. No, you got to win 4 to win a series. Well, they have to win 4 games to win a national championship. They've done 3/4 of the job, and now they have an opportunity in a pretty historic matchup against another historic program to close this thing out with a 3rd straight game against Notre Dame in as many years.
Yeah, when you look at the Ohio State offense, they've been outstanding throughout the college football playoffs. Ryan Day talked about the Buckeyes offense and approaching this game with Notre Dame.
We're in a rhythm now. We played in a bunch of big games, so I feel like it's a matter of us being at our best and maximizing our talents right now. I don't think at this point it's about the fact that big games. We played a bunch of big games before. We played a lot of games. Now we got to go play our best game, and that's got to be the focus.
Steve, what takeaways from that Texas win? When you looked back on it, what do you leave and go, huh?
I thought Texas had a really good game plan for Jeremiah Smith. Essentially, their game plan was, you guys might beat us, but that 18-year-old's not going to be the reason why you beat us. And Ohio State also got in its own way. They had 9 penalties for 75 yards in that game. You take away some of those penalties, which includes Travion Henderson mushing a guy in the face. That's an unsportsmanlike penalty. That's 15 yards. A couple of holding calls. That's 10 yards. And then unnecessary roughness by left guard Austin Saravel. That's another 10 yards, right? Those start to add up. And so there are some possessions that were essentially lost. And that's why we didn't see the Ohio State offense, the explosiveness from it that we had seen the first 2 college football games when they had outscored teams 38-0 in the first quarter. They were up 21-10 at halftime against Tennessee, up 34-0 at halftime against Oregon. They got in their own way. Texas did some things to take away one of their best players, but Ohio State helped them. Ohio State helped Texas's defense slow them down. They can't allow themselves to help Notre Dame slow them down. Now, Notre Dame might not play schematically the same way that Texas did, which might open up some things in the passing game. But the bigger thing here is that game taught me is if Ohio State isn't making mental errors, if they're playing clean, there's not a team in the country that can slow them down.
You bring up an interesting point and kind of leads right into what I was going to ask you next. So Texas played a lot of zone, and they made sure that they had help over the top on Jeremiah Smith. Notre Dame, I believe I have heard several times that they play the most man coverage in all of college football, the highest percentage. If you're Notre Dame, do you play man coverage knowing that Jeremiah Smith is a problem, or do you change what you do best? I mean, it's a dilemma if you're the defensive coordinator.
It is. I think Notre Dame's going to have to cause some turnovers. They've caused more turnovers than anybody else in the country, too. They've got 32 calls turnovers. Texas, ironically enough, was number 2 at 31. If this were a year ago and it was the 4-team college football playoff and this was a semifinal, or even if this was 15 years ago and we're talking about the BCS era, you're talking about times when there's 30 days between when the regular season ends and when you're playing in a bowl game, playing in a national championship game. I think the idea of, hey, Notre Dame, look at what Texas just did. You should copy and paste. That's more realistic. You can't ask a team who got here going left to all of a sudden in 10 days learn how to go right. Now, can they maybe sprinkle in a little bit more zone than what we've seen over their first 15 games here? Sure, of course they can. But to just sit here and be like, hey, I know this is what got you here. I know this is what you're supposed to be good at, but you shouldn't do what you're good at anymore because the team on the other side is better than you. I think that's waving a white flag before you even get on the field. Notre Dame's just got to take their best punch. Ohio State's the bully on the schoolyard. They're Mike Tyson in his prime. They're George Foreman, right? They're the team where They hit you with a couple of haymakers, and that's just kind of what it is. That's what the Texas game boiled down to. You won that game 28-14 because you won it on 2 plays. You won it because at the end of the first half, Travion Henderson takes a screen pass 75 yards for a touchdown. And all of a sudden you played a really good half, but you're still down 14-7. And then at the end of the game, what does Jack Sawyer do? He essentially becomes an Ohio State football legend with a strip sack, scoop and score for 83 yards to the heart of Texas. Those 2 plays are what won Ohio State a game on a day when their offense didn't play great. That's what they are. They're the ultimate haymaker king. Notre Dame's got to find ways to mitigate those haymakers, find ways to throw their own, and they have to do that by being the best versions of themselves.
So when you look at the Irish offensively, what concerns you about Notre Dame if you're Ohio State on the offensive side of the ball for the Irish?
Yeah, Ohio State's not played a quarterback like Riley Leonard all year. And what I mean by that is they've played scrambling quarterbacks, but they haven't necessarily played a quarterback who is a part of the run game as much as Riley and Leonard is. He's got about 892 yards rushing this year. He might end up with 1,000 this year if they run him a lot on Monday night. But that's a different element, and it's going to, I think, test these linebackers a little bit more than maybe they've been tested. Cody Simon has been stout. Sonny Styles has been pretty good as well, but he's been a little shaky in coverage at times. I think Texas took advantage of that. Maybe Notre Dame can take advantage of that with their running back, Jeremiah Love, as well. But I think the overwhelming thing that I think makes me nervous, if anything makes me nervous, is Michigan showed everybody the blueprint for how to beat Ohio State. Now, granted, Notre Dame doesn't wear maize and blues and winged helmets. So that's an element that you have to continue to harp on, is the fact that everybody can't do what Michigan did because they're not Michigan. They don't bring the mental hurdle that Michigan brings to the table. But from a schematic standpoint, if you can force Ohio State to feel like they have to prove something, they have to prove they're tough, they have to prove that they can beat you in the run game, you can slow down the game and you can give yourself a chance in the fourth quarter. So I think for Notre Dame, it's Riley Leonard as a runner. It's Jeremiah Love. Can he be explosive at times? But more importantly, can Notre Dame control the game? It's 60 minutes of a football game. Can Notre Dame hold on to the ball for 40 of those minutes, right? And shorten the game and give themselves the best opportunity to, when they get to the fourth quarter, when you get to those last 8 minutes, they have an opportunity to take their best shot.
That will be difficult given the way Ohio State's defense has played. Again, they were really good against the Longhorn. I mean, look at before the strip sack, you had it at the 1 yard line and you couldn't score. And 3 plays later, after the quarter break, it turns into a touchdown for the defense. How good has this Ohio State defense been in the playoffs?
Well, not just in the playoff. They've been the best unit all season. I know they had that bad game against Oregon, but overall, this has been by far the best defense in the country. They're first in points allowed per game at 12.2. They're first in yards allowed per play at 4.12. They're sixth nationally in passing yards allowed per attempt, and that's 5.9. And they're second in the nation in rushing yards allowed per attempt at 2.68. And they're number 1 in all but the passing category in the Big Ten. They don't allow anything. And that goal line stand we saw in Texas, it's not the first time we've seen that all year. We saw it against Penn State. We saw it against Tennessee. We saw it against Nebraska. We saw it against Oregon. We have seen this win or lose all season, to where, yeah, Ohio State's going to make you work for every yard. And then just when you think you can finally break through and you're at the 1 or the 2 or the 3 yard line, no, you got to earn that too. And it's not just Jack Sawyer. It's JT Tuimoloau. It's Lathan Ransom and Caleb Downs as the best safety duo in the country. It's Denzel Burke and Davis Igbinosun and Jermaine Matthews working in that corner. It's Jordan Hancock at nickel. It's these linebackers. It's the interior guys, Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton. It's even some depth pieces like Kenyatta Jackson. There is nothing off the table for Jim Knowles. And this is where they've spent the last 3 years building up their defense to get to. When you've got a guy who's as creative as Jim Knowles is and has this much talent, this is what it looks like. Statistically, and the eye test tell you that this is probably the best defense in the country. And it's been pretty historic all season long.
All right, before I let you go, Ohio State gets a win. What does it mean for Ryan Day to get a win and get a national championship this season?
Yeah, it goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning, the idea of leaving no doubt. That's been the goal all year. And the funny thing is, this program has done nothing but create doubt. For all 6 years that Ryan Day's been the head coach, it's hey, can he replace Urban Meyer and recruit the way Urban Meyer did? Okay, yeah, he can do that. Okay, can he continue to recruit and develop quarterbacks the way that he has? Okay, yeah, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud, look at what Will Howard's doing this year, even Kyle McCord, even though he left. Okay, can he put together an elite defense? Okay, yeah, he's got an elite defense the last 2 years. Can he win big games? He's going to have played 7 of the top 10 teams in the country this year. Win or lose, he is going to have to play 7 of the top 10 teams. And if they win on Monday night, they will have beaten 7 of the top 10 teams in the country. If that's leave no doubt, I don't know what that is, but it took some time to get here. And obviously, there's still the Michigan problem that he's going to have to solve next year. But there is something about winning. When you haven't done that, you don't get it. It's why, even with Clemson kind of falling off, you still have to believe in them because Dabo Swinney has shown you he can win national titles. Even with Georgia having a down year, you still have to believe in them because they had Kirby Smart. When LSU won their national championship, it probably gave Ed Orgeron 2 more years than he should have gotten at LSU, but he won a national title. You can't take that off of a coach's resume once they get that. And so now when you're talking about Ryan Day, this guy who, look where he was 45 days ago after that Michigan game, and the visual of that game and the tone and the attitude and the aura around this team. It was not even doubt. It was, I don't believe in you at all. I want to be done with you. To go from that to holding up a national championship trophy, that's the definition of leave no doubt in my mind. And that's exactly what Ryan Day is trying to do this year. And I think it might catapult his program. That's already one of the best in the country, but it might be the monkey off of his back that has just been sitting there since 2021 when they first lost to Michigan.
Stephen Means, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Stephen.
Anytime.
Stephen Means, make sure you check him out. Always really good and insightful Buckeyes coverage. He is the Buckeyes beat reporter for Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports4CLE. We will see you back here Monday at 4 o'clock. Have a great weekend, everybody. See you Monday at 4 on Sports4CLE.